What's up, everyone? Back with another video. We are going to look at the match between Judit Polgar and Leinier Dominguez that took place at the World Cup in 2011. Now, this is round 4. In round 3, Judit had upset Sergey Karyakin by beating him 1 to a half point and 1.5 to a half in their match. And so she moved on to round 4 to face Leinier Dominguez. Now, this match was epic in that it went for a total of 8 games. Now, let me remind you that the World Cup is a knockout tournament. So, basically, the first 2 games are classical games. 90 minutes for 40 moves. And then you have 30 minutes for the rest of the moves with 30-second increments. Those are your first 2 games. Then the games 3 and 4, if need be, are 2 rapid games. So those are 25 minutes with 10-second increments. And then if the match is still not decided, you have 2 more rapid games at a shorter time control, 10 minutes with 10-second increments. If those 2 games don't decide the outcome of the match, then you have 2 more games at blitz speed, 5 minutes with each side having 3-second increments. And finally, if that doesn't work out, then you have the Armageddon, which is where white gets 5 minutes to black getting only 4 minutes. However, white must win the game. A draw automatically goes to black. So this match actually went 8 games. 7 out of the 8 games were decisive. So as you could tell, they were going back and forth. And I definitely want to show you this game because there's a lot of insights that you could take about the players' styles, or what type of positions they were comfortable in. And hopefully I can relay some of the things that I was able to pick up from looking at the match. Let me just remind you once again before I get started, Chess Audiobooks is on Instagram, chess.com, live chess, Twitter. So please follow me on those platforms. Also, please check the links below and consider supporting my channel, and also find more information there regarding the subject matter that we talk about today. So DVDs and or books will be down in the links below also. So let's get started. So again, basically you could be eliminated in this tournament if you lose 1 game and then draw the other. So it's really a lot of pressure on the players, and it also makes for some really exciting chess games. Alright, so every victory counts. So Judit here has the white pieces. She was rated 26.99 at the time. Leinier Dominguez was rated 27.19 at the time, so pretty close, almost even in rating. So Judit, being an aggressive player, of course, opens up with e4, c5. Dominguez is a Sicilian specialist. d6, d4, e takes, knight f6, knight c3, a6. So we go into the knight off. Now, since there's 8 games, I'm not going to go into a crazy amount of analysis. I'm just going to try to point out some of the high points of the match and try to keep it moving. So in this match, you had the knight off a Sicilian here. Bishop e3, e5, very popular variation. Knight f3. And basically, Judit was not able to get anything out of the opening from Dominguez, and I think this affected her play subsequently later on in the match, and you'll see what I'm talking about. Rook c8, rook f d1, b5, bishop g5, knight bd7, rook ac1, b4, and knight d5. And now here, after bishop takes d5, bishop takes f6, knight takes f6 and e takes d5, black was able to gain an advantage eventually, and it's mostly due to the fact that this bishop on b3 wind up being out of the game after this pawn capture on d5. Now hindsight, after the move d5, after d5, maybe instead of capturing with the pawn, white should have just acquiesced for a pretty much level position by accepting all of these exchanges and going into middle game like this, where he has superior pawn structure that he could work on, but the game is still pretty much equal, or she could work on. So instead, Polgar decided to keep that bishop, but we'll see that that's become a problem later on. So bishop c4, trying to keep the bishop somewhat active. And of course, Dominguez doesn't want to push a5 at the time, of course, and give up this great square where the bishop could become active. So queen a7, just protecting the pawn. c3, b takes c3, rook takes c3, bishop d8, and I'll try to move a little faster. Knight g5 here, and now you see the move a5 come into play. And now rook f3, queen e7, and b3. Little passive for my taste. Maybe rook c3 is a little better. And again, as I mentioned before, maybe even move like bishop b5. Although black has a good game here. Black has nothing to worry about, say after like e4, for example. Able to play moves like this and get real sharp in the position. And white really has a lot to still prove in that position, but like I said, bishop b5 is definitely an option there. Instead, b3 was played, a4. I like black's minority attack here. Rook h3, g6, and queen c2. So you can see Polgar's trying to find some attacking schemes in the position, but just is basically knocking on a hard wood door and can't get anybody to answer. You can see this bishop is just basically one of the pawns at this point. And instead of queen c2, putting the queen right on line with that rook on c8, maybe queen f3, but still white has trouble after a takes, let's say bishop takes b3, knight h5, and try to give white something to do here. Knight e4, h4, queen g4 check, and it's just not enough for the exchange. Black is good there, and that's one thing about the Sicilian. The Sicilian is real sturdy. You could throw the kitchen sink at the Sicilians many times, and there's defensive possibilities still remain. So anyway, queen c2 happened. A takes b3. Of course, e4 was possible here too. A takes b3. A takes b3. Bishop b6, and now black's pieces start to come alive here. The dark square bishop gets in the game. It's a bad sign for white. Knight e4, f5, rook g3, and this is like Sicilian defense 101. Here comes the counter attack. Rook c7, a file is taking over. Bishop d4, excellent place for the bishop, and just contrast the bishops. Look what happened to that bishop on c4, and that's why I showed you the variation earlier, to show you that white should have just captured with the pieces on d5. g3, rooks come off the board. Bishop c5, and now e4, queen e2, rook e8. Now Polgar played f3. Again, a better move would be like bishop b5, or at least trying to revive that bishop somewhat, and also rook a2. However, f3 was played, and just simply e takes f3 check. Of course, the rook can't be taken because check has to be addressed first. So queen takes f3, rook to e3, queen f1, queen e5, and now you can see Leinier just dominating the position. Queen f4, queen e7, rook a2, rook e1, b4, bishop e3, queen f3, and now rook g1 check, king h3, and queen g5. Oh, very strong move here, and there's really nothing that white can do about the move queen to h6 that is coming, right? Except just make some computer moves and lose a lot of material in the position. So that was a nice, smooth Sicilian game by Dominguez, and he won with the black pieces. And usually when the Grandmaster wins with the black pieces in the first game, it's easy for them to make a draw with the white pieces in the second game, and that's all she wrote. And that's why I was so impressed with Judith's fighting spirit, because she just got beat with the white pieces, but she didn't get beat. It's just the manner that she lost. Like, she had no chances in this game. The opening went terrible for white, and black just kind of like steamrolled her. And so you figure with Dominguez getting the white pieces, okay, time to check out of the hotel and get the, start packing the bags. But Judith obviously had other plans, and she came out fighting in the next game where she had the black pieces. So here's game 2. Dominguez only needs a draw to win. Now, being that Judith is a very aggressive player, I don't know why Dominguez didn't play more of a quiet system. But maybe he was feeling really confident and he went for it. So he played e4. Nothing wrong with playing e4, but you can still play quietly. And of course, Judith needs a win, so she's playing Sicilian here. Knight f3, knight c6. And even here, instead of d4, why not play maybe like Rossolimo or something? Bishop, bishop b5 or something like that. Or even after seeing the Sicilian, maybe play a move like knight c3. Play Grand Prix attack, something like that, where white is not really taking too many chances. But I guess he wanted to stay in his wheelhouse. So this is how the game started. Alright, pieces come out, and you can see we have this it's like related to the Sveshnikov Pelican variations, whereby black is going to try to get this in one move. Alright, now I'm going to skip ahead because this game actually went 112 moves. Alright, so I'm just going to speed through. And so here's like the general opening. And again, Dominguez had white. And so that's at move 12. This is what the opening looks like. So now we're going to just skip ahead. And we're going to go to the end game, which was very important. So actually, before that, I want to show you before that I want to show you how we got there. In the position again became really wild, which is what black wants, needing a win. And so that's why I kind of question the opening strategy for Dominguez here. So in this position, after black played the move b5, queen h4, and now h6 here, and Dominguez went for it. Bishop takes h6, g takes h6, queen takes h6. Going for checkmate. Knight e8, e5, f5 from Polgar. Bishop takes f5, e takes f5. Amazing stuff from Dominguez here. Knight d5, bishop f8, hitting the queen. Knight takes c7, bishop takes h6, and now knight takes a8. So you can see here white wins the exchange. All right, but black has the extra minor piece. Bishop takes f4. Bishop takes d6. All right, so it's a imbalanced position. White has exchanged 2 extra pawns, and again, a lot of opportunity for both sides. All right, and I'm just gonna speed through these moves because, like I said, the game was very long. But I do want to get to this ending and just fly by this real quick. So of course you have the 2 rooks, it's 2 bishops and rook, and Judit. So Judit has chances. Of course, White is really not, can't really push for a win here, but more or less draw. Again, just light commentary here. And you can see with those 2 bishops putting a lot of pressure on the black position. Now, on the white position. Now white has to worry about these mating threats on the first rank. And now that rook on d1 is pretty much tied to the first rank unless it can, check. And so this is the idea. Like I said, I'm just going to fly by these moves very, very quickly. And I just want to get to end position. So you can see Judith here is fighting for her life in the tournament. Picks up a pawn. And now we go into this ending rook and bishop and pawn versus rook and pawn. Notorious ending. Now rook takes b4, so now you got rook and pawn versus rook and bishop. And again, Dominguez needs to draw this position, right? A lot of theoretical draws here, but it's difficult to draw, especially with humans playing. One of those positions, if you put it on the table base, it might say draw, but then there's only 2 moves that draw and the rest of the moves lose. It's kind of like one of those scenarios. So for instance, in this position, I looked at it with the table base. There's only 1 move here that wins for black. It's black to move. Only 1 move wins. And that move is rook to b8. Everything else draws. So Polgar played a natural looking move, right? Rook h2. You might be like, well, what's wrong with that? Rook h2, according to the table base, is a draw. You have to do some research to really understand. King a3, and according to the table base, it's equal. But again, that's not who's playing the game. So rook b2 from Polgar, and now rook g4. And this actually loses for black now. Rook b4 will keep the draw, and also rook a7. And I understand rook a7 though. If rook a7, rook takes b3 check, and let's say king a4, because it's important. If the king went to a2, then the king risks getting mated here. So for instance, rook b2, and now king a1. And you see how the bishop now cuts the king off at a2. So rook a3, for example, bishop b3, rook a7, and then now again, mate is being threatened. There's really nothing that white can do to stop it. So for instance, if rook c7 check, bishop just comes to c4, and the mate threat is still there on d1 with rook d1, since the bishop is guarding the a2 square. Again here, if king a3, bishop c4, and now the threat is rook a2, rook c7, and again just rook a2. So it's very dangerous. And that's just how rook a7 would go. And this is why king a4 would have to be played, which would actually hold the draw. But that's the difference. If you go to a2, you lose. You go to a4, you draw. So this is what Dominguez is facing. Here, Dominguez played rook g4. Rook takes b3. King a4. But remember, the rook is not on a7 as it was in the other variation. So on g4. So now rook b1. Again, I'm showing you the options and showing you how the king is cut off here. King a5. Rook b5. King a4. Rook f5. And this is the cat and mouse game that they go through for about 20-30 moves, where Jude is desperately trying to win the game. Mate threat right there. So rook g2. Idea is rook a1, rook a2, rook h1, and I'll just go a little faster. But the idea is just to keep creating mate threats. See, another mate threat there. But just to give you the idea, that like Judith is trying to find the best continuation, putting all of her, her energy into it. And of course, Dominguez would love to find some situation where he could keep checking, a stalemate, anything to get him out of the situation. Again, another mating attempt. Another mating attempt. Also, Judith has to be careful to avoid threefold repetitions. So Judith has to mix it up. And although the positions look similar, they're not actually repeating. Alright? And so, finally, after King A1, there's no way to escape mate after Rook G6. The reason is because the white rook cannot defend on the first rank and the A file at the same time. So after Rook G6, Dominguez resigned after 112 moves. The reason why is after King A1, Rook G6. If King A2, then just simply Rook A6, because now the King on A2 stops its own rook from protecting him. Alright, and again, the bishop is very strong on the light squares. Again, and now if Rook A2, then just simply Rook G1 check. So Judith, with her hard work, created an unstoppable mate situation at the 112 moves. And again, very impressive for her to come back and win with the black pieces after losing in the manner that she did in the first round. And again, I just wonder why Dominguez played such a aggressive system, violent system that was created so many fireworks on board, when he could have just kind of tried to kept it quiet and maybe played like closed Sicilian or something like that, and or even like a G3 Sicilian, something still closed Sicilian, but just something that wouldn't have led to so many chances for black, because everyone knows that Judith is aggressive player. So you don't want to give a player like that any type of opportunities to play in the manner that she feels most at home and comfortable. Alright, game 3. So now we are in the rapids, the 25-minute games with the 10-second increments. So now Judith has the white pieces. She began with e4, of course, c5, again knight c3 this time for her. And now it's understandable why she would switch up, because she had a bad time in the opening the first time and probably didn't have enough time to prepare properly for Leinier's Sicilian. So she plays this Grand Prix attack. Knight c6, knight f3, g6, bishop b5, bishop d7, castle, bishop g7, d3, a6. Knight d4 is also playable. I'm going to keep going. The video's pretty long. Bishop takes c6, bishop takes c6, and now queen e1. Typical idea to transfer to the queen side, king side. Queen d7, a4, b5, e5, knight h6, e takes, queen takes, a takes, and now knight b5. Again, this attacking type of style is right in Judit's wheelhouse here. Of course, the queen is attacked here, and the so the rook can't take on a1 because the queen is attacked. If the bishop takes on b5, then the rook drops because the rook will be unprotected. So queen b8, rook takes. All right, if queen takes, then knight c7. Again, tactics everywhere. This is where Judit thrives. Cannot let this woman get these type of positions. Bishop takes a8, and now c4. Knight f5, bishop e3, bishop c6. Knight takes e3 is possible, and queen takes e3. Of course, white still holding a slight advantage there. Bishop c6, and bishop takes c5, bishop takes b5, queen b4. Again, tactics, castle. C takes b5, rook came to d8, b6, h6, rook a1, king h7, queen e4, bishop takes b2, rook b1, bishop f6, knight e5, and with the threat on f7 and the fork on c6. I'm trying to move a little faster, guys. Bishop d6, rook takes d6, b7, queen a7 check, king f1, rook b6, rook takes, queen takes, and now knight d7. Very strong move, protecting the promotion square. All Dominguez can do is throw in a few checks, looking for perpetual. There's the queen, and after king h3, Dominguez resigned. Now Dominguez is in danger now of losing the match. All Polgar has to do now is draw with the black pieces in the next game. And so here we are again, another rapid time control. Alright, so Dominguez now needs to win. E4, and what is Polgar going to play here? So before, usually she'll play Sicilian. That's her game. Matter of fact, that's like her main opening. But here she plays the Scandinavian, which to me is definitely not in her style of play. Scandinavian is more for like a patient player. I know you see a lot of successful attacks at the lower levels with this opening, but when you look at it at the Grandmaster level, it's really it's really like played like a Carol Khan or Slav defense, where you have to have a slow, steady hand and be very patient, used to being in cramped positions for long periods of time, and then looking for opportunities to counterattack. If you're that type of player, this is the type of opening for you. But this is not really an attacking player's type of opening, right? This is an opening that you will get attacked a lot and pushed around because of the early queen movements and things like that. And you'll be in cramped positions many times. And you know, to me, a player like Judit, she needs, to let her pieces shine and be out and be aggressive. Not this type of system. But anyway, she played it, needing to draw and to go on to the next round. So we have typical Scandinavian lines here. Again, rapid development by white. And black has to make the necessary precautions, preventing knight b5, etc. Bishop drops to b3, bishop b7. Knight goes to e5, castle, bishop f4. And you can see the problems with bringing the queen out early. I know there's a few specialists in this opening. If you do want to study the Scandinavian, a good grandmaster to study is Sergei Tivyakov. He's probably #1 in the world in this particular system with 3 queen d6. And actually, that's the only move that he believes in out of the 3 possibilities of queen d6, knight f6, and queen a5. He actually plays queen d6 at the highest levels. But again, it's not for everybody. He has that kind of style that, and of course he's worked out, a lot of these variations over the years. But he has that patience and steady style that he's not gonna be over aggressive. He's gonna let himself be attacked, and hopefully his opponent leaves some kind of weakness that he can exploit at some point. So Queen D8, Rook E1, Knight BD7, Queen E2, and C5. And this is the type of move that you're gonna make when you're an aggressive player, right? Because again, C5 threatening C4, okay, and undermining the knight on E5. You want to just make those rapid changes in the position. All right, but look what happens after C5. D takes C5, knight takes C5, Rook AD1, another tempo on the queen, Queen C8, and now boom, tactical shot. Bishop takes F7. Again, I'm not gonna get in all of the side analysis, but bishop takes F7, Rook takes, knight takes, king takes, queen takes E7, King G8, Bishop C7, and of course 2 pawns for the exchange. White is better, threatening Rook D8, of course, Bishop F8. So position just falls apart just right after C5. Queen takes C7, Knight D5, Queen F7. If Bishop takes D5, White is still in the driver's seat. Right, can go in this comfortable endgame with the 2 extra pawns. Right, and have a good advantage there. Instead, Queen F7 by Polgar, Knight E7, queens come off, and again you had the similar endgame, except the rook is more dominant. Rooks are more dominantly placed in the position. And again, I'll just go fast through here. And Dominguez is just picking up pawns while he's pushing the H pawn. Eventually, Judit had to give up the piece to stop the pawn from promoting. And now Dominguez goes into simply one game. And after A4, it was Judit that has to resign. So they're hitting that tennis ball back and forth. And I don't know. I need to send a message to Judit on Twitter or something like that, because I still can't figure out for the life of me why she picked this particular defense instead of just sticking with her trusted Sicilian defense. I don't know if she just figured that Perez was such a Sicilian specialist that she needs to switch up or something. But I mean, she got absolutely demolished in that opening right there. So now again we're tied up again. Now we're moving on into the 10-minute rounds. So once again, Judit has the white pieces, Dominguez with the black pieces here. So E4, C5 again, Knight F3, D6. So here Judit just goes back to our open Sicilian, no Grand Prix attack this time. Knight off, and now you have this Bishop C4 variation. Knight off, I think once favored by Fischer long time ago. B5, Bishop B3, and Bishop E7. Okay, we all should know the theory. I'm not going to get into that. I can't say we should all know the theory, but anyway, B4 is not the best move for white. And let's just say that for black rather, let's just say because white gets active. I'm not going to go into all the analysis after that. But Bishop E7, Queen F3, Queen B6 here, Bishop E3, Queen B7, A3, castle, Rook E1, Bishop D7, G4, Knight C6, G5, Knight E5 here, Queen G2. And it's just interesting to see the difference in play when Judit is able to be really active with her pieces. I mean, she is an amazing tactician. Like when she gets going, she's very hard to stop and out calculate. And these are the type of positions that you must avoid if you're playing her. Knight c2, f6, bishop d8, knight f5. Amazing move. Amazing move. Thematic, but still amazing move. G takes f5, knight c3. Right, this protects the e pawn. Also, not threatens, but plans to go to d5 at some point. Also, if need be. King h8, queen h3, hitting that knight. Knight goes to f4. Bishop takes, e takes. Rook takes f4. Rook g8. Rook h4. Look at that, leaving the king open for check. King f1. Bishop takes f6. And there it is, knight d5, hitting the bishop. Queen takes b2. Rook takes h7, king g8, and now queen h6. Again, hitting the bishop again. Bishop d8. And now e5. Fantastic move. This is like the, cutting off the action of the queen on this diagonal. Just throwing like a monkey wrench right there in the middle. And this changes everything. Brilliant move by Judit. Rook g1. King takes g1. Queen d4. And king f1. And that's all she wrote. Or all he wrote, for that matter. As Dominguez had to resign. Right after that. Again, tactical melees are not, they're good for Judit, right? She is a fantastic tactician, fantastic handler of the pieces. It's just amazing looking at these games night and day. It's like if you let her pieces out, you're gonna be in trouble. You gotta keep her like restrained, keep the position like pretty closed, bogged down, maneuvering, and you have better chances when you allow these like opposite wing attacks, and she's allowed to open up the position, and it's just absolutely incredible. Let's get to the next game. Thank you for staying with me. So again, after Judit wins, now it's Dominguez who needs to win in order to keep his chances going. Again, this match, 10-minute time control. This game, it's 10-minute time control at this point. And now Dominguez e4, needing to win. d5 again. So even after getting smashed 2 games ago, Polgar comes back out with the Scandinavian. E takes, queen takes, knight c3, queen d6, d4, knight f6, g6, h3, bishop g7, bishop c4, a6, castles, knight c6. Of course, with this idea, thematic, knight b4, knight d5, a3 stops that castle, rook e1. Real easy and simple development for white. Rook d8, bishop e3, protecting the d pawn, bishop e6. Bishop takes e6, queen takes e6, and now queen e2, queen to f5, rook a d1. So white has now completed his development, and black has almost completed her development. Rook d6, g4, again gaining time on the queen, queen e6, queen to f1, rook d8, bishop f4, gaining time on the queen again, queen d7, and now d5. And again, like I said, this is not Judit's type of position. Alright, she's having trouble developing, and due again to the early queen maneuvers, black finds herself getting kicked around. The pieces have nowhere to go now. So this knight that was proudly placed on c6 now has to go to a7 due to the placement of the queen. Of course, black would love to be able to capture on d5, but can't because of the queen being on d7. Knight a7, And now knight e5. Again, more time gained against the queen. So you get the problems with playing Scandinavian. Not saying it's unplayable, don't get me wrong. I know there's a lot of Scandinavian fans out there, but these are problems that come up. And Judith's a strong grandmaster too. And she's having a lot of difficulties at this point. A4, again, keeping the knight from coming back in. You know, like dominating the piece. You know, A7. So, comes to C8. The idea going to like B6 or D6 or something like that. But again, these aren't Judith's type of positions. I keep saying that. Look at the black pieces. Do the black pieces look aggressively placed? Do they have chances to maybe sacrifice or break into the enemy position? No. They're just on the back rank, passively placed. This type of position is more favorable for Dominguez, of course. B3, knight D6, queen G2. Knight D7, rook D3, knight takes E5. Pieces start coming off. This is good for white. Nice positional game. Right, slow Judith down. You can see how important styles are in chess. Knight C3. And this is why you must play openings that suit your style. Because you can look like a world beater if you play the correct system that falls in line with your personal chess style. You'll find that the opening is much easier to learn, or the system is much easier to learn. You find tactics easier. It's just a comfort that you have because that particular system fits the way you learn the game or the way you play the game. You play something else that doesn't really fit, you might have trouble. And I'm sure if you've been playing chess long enough, you've experienced that. Like some things you could play and you're like a world beater, and then you play some other system and it's just like, it just doesn't feel right to you. You don't do well. It seems like that with this particular opening. So queen f5 here, queen e5, and then finally Dominguez trades off and again ties it up again. Look at the ending. Judith's down a bunch of pawns. Why did she play this opening? Do not know. Like I said, I am very curious because it just seems like it's so much against her style. Right, and like I said, the only thing I could think of at this point is she just had a lot of respect for Dominguez's knowledge and Sicilian theory, and was just trying to maybe throw him off a little bit. But man, did he just dominate these two games. It's almost like she just gave away two games. But yeah, so Dominguez was able to tie it up, and now we can move on to the 5-minute games with 3-second increments. And now Judith has Judith has the white pieces here again. In this game, Judith started out e5, another Sicilian, and this game is actually going to be the only draw of the match. So, Judith went with the Grand Prix attack again. And this game ended up being a draw. Seemed like black did a little homework, got that f5 in early as opposed to letting white get f5 in early, and was able to draw the game here. Alright, so they go into the, I'll leave that here, and so they go into the next game, which was a 5-minute blitz game with 3-minute increments. This is their 8th game, I believe. And again, we have Judith with the black pieces. E4. And we already seen her get smashed 2 times with the black pieces in a row with the Scandinavian. So, is the 3rd time a charm? Well, we'll never know, because she went back to her bread and butter, which is what I felt like she should have did all along. So knight f3, knight c6, d4, c takes d4, knight takes d6, queen b6, and we're into her wheelhouse. e6, trying to get d5 in one move, of course, in these like Pelican variations, and you know that's an old school name, Pelican, you know, Sveshnikov variations. a6, but that's what black is trying to do. This is why the pawn is delayed here on d7. Black is just trying to get that in one shot instead of playing d6 and then, you know, working it out and building up and getting d5 in. Queen d2, queen goes back to c7, and that allows b5 at some point. Of course, there it is, b5, f3, bishop e7, king to b1, castles, g4, and ladies and gentlemen, we have a game. Knight e5, right? Sicilian. Notice again, and please, I want to emphasize again the style. If you're an aggressive player, you need to play these type of systems where your pieces can get out, you can get developed, you can start attacking. And you can see the difference between this position and the Scandinavian defense that Judith had, where she was getting knocked around and couldn't get the, you know, really get the pieces into the game. Here she had all type of counterplay. The Sicilian. Knight on e5 aggressively placed, right? Bishop ready to come to b7. Pawns on the queen side advance. Semi-open c file. All right, she has chances to use her her tactical gifts, so to speak. Right, those are her strong points. Let's keep going. So Leinier said, "Hey, I'm gonna pin this knight." Bishop f4 and b5. At this point, knight f3 would be a mistake because bishop takes e7, knight d2 check, and then just rook d2, and it looks like black is losing material, has lost material. So b4, knight e2, and now rook d8 here, knight e d4, bishop b7. Again, building up, all of this is to build up for this d5 push. Notice again, e6 has not been played, or d6, I'm sorry. Queen e1. Now, queen e1 seemed like a sensible move. d5 is coming, and so queen wants to get off the d file. But better, it's probably bishop e2, right? Or bishop g2. The idea is to guard the f3 pawn. So you might say, hey, it's already guarded by the knight on d4, but it's going to need some more protection. So after queen e1, rook ac8. Alright. h4, and now d5, right? This is old school chess, right? Meeting a flank attack with the counter attack in the center. d5, e takes d5, rook takes d5. Alright. And this is an important nuance right here, because now the rook is no longer at d8. Alright. And what do I mean by that? Well, I'll go back. If you see right here, before the move rook ac8 is played, if black goes knight takes f3 here, bishop takes c7, knight takes e1, you can see with the rook at d8, he would just lose this exchange here, you see? So now we go forward, rook ac8, h4, d5, e takes d5, rook d5. The rook is no longer at d8. This is when Leinier makes an oversight. He plays a move h5 here, and now knight takes f3 works. And this just shows you again how sharp Judith is tactically. So knight f3, and Leinier has to play queen g3. If he takes, bishop takes e1. I'm sorry, c7. Queen, knight takes e1. Rook takes e1. Rook takes c7. And black is just winning at this point. Right? Black is going to win the extra material. Those pawns are going to win the game for black. This is why Dominguez played queen g3. e5, shutting that down. Bishop g2, and again the game gets wild and messy. And guess who's gonna have more chance of winning this game? Judit, cause she's stronger. She's a stronger player tactically. So this type of position is going to benefit her, and it does. E takes f4, queen takes f3, rook d4, giving up the exchange. Knight takes d4, bishop takes f3. Right, queen is one. Even here, if queen takes b7, then rook takes d1, takes, and then queen c2, and black is going to get mated. Excuse me, white is going to get mated. That's why that doesn't work. So once again, if queen takes b7 here, then rook takes, and using the c file, queen c2, and then mate. Therefore, Dominguez played knight takes d4, queen drops, knight d7, rook h1, bishop f6, rook he1, I'm sorry, bishop f6, knight c6. There it is, c pawn drops, king a1, bishop takes e5, f6, bishop e4, queen d2, bishop f5. And very strong move again. Just exploiting the situation tactically. Bishop takes b2. Of course, rook can't take b2 because after rook takes b2, just simply queen takes rook on e1. Check. Rook g1 would try to avoid that combination, but just simply b3. a3, and then queen a5, exploiting the pin on the king from the dark square bishop, and queen a3 is unstoppable also. So either way, black is going to win. So that concludes, ladies and gentlemen, my commentary on one of the great matches of the World Cup. I don't know if anybody would have ever covered this match since it's, not a world chess championship match, but man, that was some exciting chess there. And if you stayed to the end of the video, great. I salute you and thank you for supporting my channel. Please get in that comment section. But like I said, I just wanted you to just see some real exciting chess. I know I was inspired watching it, and like I said, I learned a lot just watching the contrast in styles, right? I looked at the games that Dominguez won, and I saw the type of position, how the position was kind of calm and mellow, how he had everything under control in the games that he won. And in the games that Judit won, it was like tactical melees on the board. So it's kind of like the match was really about, can Dominguez contain her firepower, right? And eventually, as the time controls, of course, got more and more restrictive, right? Less and less time controls. That's going to favor the tactician, isn't it? And you saw, right, in the last game, that, she really let out all of the stops. And again, I hope that you guys all enjoy that. Please, again, check the links below. Consider supporting the channel. Also, join me on the social platforms. Like I said, Instagram, Twitter, chess.com, and Lee Chess. Get in the comment section below. Let me know what you think, and I'll see you on the next video.